This episode of The Solid Verbal is presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. Navy Federal has a mission to put members first by making their financial goals the priority. Receive a lifetime of membership benefits to help you and your family accomplish your life missions, like a full suite of financial products designed to fit your needs, 24/7 live support, and access to over 300 branches on or near military bases. So visit NavyFederal.org for more info, call 1-888-842-6328, or download the Navy Federal Credit Union app right now. Message and data rates may apply. Navy Federal is federally insured by NCUA.
Welcome to The Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our Week 4 preview episode. Ty is attending to some family and life stuff that's far more sensible for him to spend his time doing than talking to me about, I don't know, Missouri's defense or something. So I'm happy to welcome on, our old pal, Andy Staples. Andy, how you doing?
Hi, Dan. What's going on?
Not too much. I'm excited for a week of football, and because I didn't know if I was going to have Ty or not, I have the schedule of games and topics right in front of me. So I guess this is where you sort of vent about Brandon Wimbush and Ian Book for 17 to 19 minutes. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I mean, how did they do this all spring, and didn't they know this was coming? And what? No, I'm actually fine with Brandon Wimbush and Ian Book.
Same.
I think Notre Dame folks need to understand they are a team that has a really good defense and an okay offense, and their games are all going to induce heart attacks this year.
Yeah.
But they're probably going to win most of them.
Yeah, that's fine. And you know what? Florida State's a lot worse than we thought they would be. They're on the schedule. USC, they've got some issues. They're on the schedule. So you know what? Things are looking all right.
I would be perfectly happy as a Notre Dame person. Now, here's the problem, and this is what bothers them. Mm-hmm. They're sweating a trip to Wake Forest this weekend.
Yeah.
But that's just how it's going to be. You're going to sweat those games.
Yeah, when you beat Ball State by 8, everything's a sweat lodge. Yeah.
You beat Vandy by 5. Mm-hmm. This is how it goes.
It is how it goes. There's not much in the way of news. Sometimes we start the preview show with news. Urban Meyer put out another Twitter statement, and it almost feels like he's trying to outwork the problem that he's facing publicly. Did you have any sort of significant reaction to it?
Not really, because listen, lawyers got paid a lot of money for that story, so they weren't going to change it. And,
right.
I mean, why should he? He got the result he was looking for, and the people who matter from his standpoint, the Ohio State Board of Trustees, they bought it. So he didn't need to release another statement at all.
No.
Now, I thought the press conference was a good idea because they were going to get hit with questions over and over if they didn't just have a, okay, let her rip kind of press conference. And they did. So that was smart PR by them to just say, all right, whatever you want to ask, no holds barred. Let's get this over with. And they did. And now I don't think he's going to be getting those questions over and over.
Okay, fair enough. And across the country, and this is, shifting from a story that actually matters to one that doesn't, which is, sort of my favorite and our favorite type of
college football. Yeah, it's all about what doesn't matter. And that's perfectly fine with me.
Oh, it's been 3-4 years since an angry UCLA father got involved in the news, and
at least nobody swung a kettlebell at somebody else this time.
No Grammy. I don't know did he ever actually won a Grammy, but no Grammy eligible artist was involved
hopefully for
this time.
Production and not for performance.
Yes.
He's a bit of a mumbler as a performer, but a hell of a producer.
Good distinction. So UCLA's starting quarterback's father, and this is not unique to UCLA because of Twitter and social media. We have parents voice their opinions after poor games. UCLA's quarterback's father, so it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson's dad, went on Twitter and basically called Chip Kelly a bum.
Yeah.
And my question to you is, if and when someday one of your children becomes an athlete or is in the public eye, would you be able to withhold your opinion publicly if you felt passionately?
I would delete Twitter if one of my children was in the public eye, because I'd probably say something stupid.
Was there any truth to what he said? I have the quotes in front of me that Chip Kelly lost a bunch of games. He wasn't good.
This guy would be complaining if his kid wasn't playing.
Yes.
And now he's complaining because his kid is playing.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. You gotta accept this a little bit with QB dads. There are going to be some QB dads that they're not going to be happy no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think Chip Kelly, having coached as many years as he has, understands that and knows how to manage it a little bit. And look, that's the guy. That's their quarterback of the future if they can keep everything together with him and he's okay and the dad, figures out, okay, everything's gonna be fine. They're just gonna go through a really bad year this year together. And if they want to stay together, they could have some pretty decent years in, the next 2 or 3.
Fair. And I had this theory, and I was talking to our pal Richard Johnson about this. Currently, there are a few coaches, I would say, it's just that they've sort of been highlighted within the Pac-12 on the sort of come down. So Chip Kelly, recently an NFL coach. That seems like that's where his brain was at. Kevin Sumlin, had that great start at Texas A&M. It's a come down to coach at Arizona and some disappointing results early on. And, Herm Edwards, I don't know if it's a come down because he's been broadcasting so long, but is there something worrisome, I would say, about a coach coaching at a place that isn't necessarily where he wants to be? And it's also a major Power 5 situation. Do we, like Steve Spurrier, it worked for him at South Carolina, but it doesn't feel like it's the recipe for succeeding. You want somebody on an ascension, I would say.
Well, here's the thing. It just depends on if the person is internally motivated or externally motivated.
Right.
Steve Spurrier is motivated by a sheer hatred of losing.
Mm-hmm.
He likes winning. He hates losing more. And so he didn't need to worry about money or, being the person who made South Carolina relevant finally. That wasn't his concern.
Or even ego.
His concern was there are games to play and I have a chance to embarrass people and beat Georgia again. Hell yeah, let's ride.
Right.
These other guys, it just kind of depends on their motivation. Now, look, I think someone's going to be fine. I just think he inherited a roster that's not good. You look at what he left behind at Texas A&M. He could always recruit dudes. You get dudes in the Pac-12 South, you win. Because other than USC, and USC's questionable at this point, but nobody recruits well across the board. So someone's actually a better recruiter than all these guys. So if he can put a couple recruiting classes together that are even, partially as good as what he put together at A&M, he'll do fine in that league. He just doesn't have the players right now.
Fair enough. And in LA, it's a weird situation. And I know we're taking this West Coast a little bit because Chip Kelly doesn't have much at UCLA right now, and USC. Another situation
where you can fix that fairly quickly.
Correct. Yes. And because the local talent is what it is, even though, Stanford and USC, even Oregon's recruiting very well in Southern California, it feels like there's probably enough players to go around, and UCLA and Chip Kelly are good enough, it seems, at identifying talent. I don't think I'm terribly worried long-term about UCLA. I'm a little bit worried about Chip Kelly and that internal motivation.
Well, but the thing about it is they've got to win huge for anybody to care. Nobody cares about UCLA football except the fan base they have is passionate, but it's small. And nobody in LA cares about UCLA football other than that small, passionate fan base. You have to make them care, and they're not giving them any reason to, and Chip's not even trying. Like USC, they seem to understand we're in LA. We have to do things a little bit differently. We can't act like Jeremy Pruitt acts at Tennessee, because at Tennessee, they're going to cover you anyway because you're the Tennessee football team. In LA, they have many other things to worry about. So, he doesn't necessarily help sell the program, but if I'm Chip, and I think I understand his line of thinking here, I'm going to either win or not. And if I win, people will come anyway. So I get that. And if that's the way he wants to go, that's fine. He's just got to get the players in and win. So we'll see if he can do that. What does he learn? The starting Wilton Speight thing, when you had Dorian Thompson-Robinson there, and we've seen what Dorian Thompson-Robinson can do, I wonder about the Wilton Speight starting thing. That was a little weird because he certainly doesn't seem to fit the profile of a Chip Kelly quarterback in college football.
I assume it was the sort of mental rep thing and not throwing, the idea of, after Oklahoma or, in the middle of Colorado or something like that. That's when we move to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, just to give him a little bit of air to breathe.
Well, and here's the thing people need to understand about these first seasons, whether it's Chip Kelly, Kevin Sumlin, Scott Frost, Dan Mullen, Jeremy Pruitt, they know they have a year to burn. So whatever they need to do to get the program in the shape they want it in, and in some cases it may be burn it down and build from the ground up. I don't know if there's one of those this year, but they can get away with as many losses as it takes this year. Next year is when they have to start actually winning. So, basically if you want to install your own culture and you feel like you have to kick some guys off the team who might be better than some of the guys you're keeping just because they're problem people, or if you feel like you got to hold somebody who's talented back so you don't throw them to the wolves and crush their confidence, this is when you do that. And
who has the steepest climb of those guys? Even, you include Willie Taggart, you include whoever you want of the power, Jimbo Fisher, who has the steepest climb saying, yes, we're only 3 weeks in, but the forecast is gloomy?
Well, I think I'm interested to see who wins Florida Tennessee this week.
Yes.
Because the assumption all offseason was that Florida's in much better shape than Tennessee. Dan Mullen inherited an easier situation than Jeremy Pruitt did. I'm not so sure that's true. I think they're probably a little bit closer than people think. And we'll see when they play the game. Because if it's a close game, that tells you these are programs in basically the same place. And I think there's a lot of work to be done in both places with expectations that are really rough considering the state of things right now in the SEC. Because you've got Georgia looks like it's joined the elite club, the Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson club. Maybe Oklahoma's in there too. It's hard to say. But at most, it's those five. And so you've got them in your division. You have Alabama on the other side of the league. So if you somehow get past Georgia, you still have to deal with Alabama. Oh, by the way, LSU might be good again. Auburn's still good. It's not a good situation for Florida and Tennessee right now, needing to get much better. It's going to take some time for them, and they're going to have to win some recruiting battles that they just have not been winning in the last few years. So those two coaches have to figure out how to make that happen.
All right, let's stay with another new coach just as we transition into the actual games this week, of which there are a number of interesting ones, but I don't know how many actual headliners, must-see TV type games we have. There's no Caroline in the City, is what I'm trying to tell you.
There's no Veronica's Closet?
There's no Veronica's Closet. There's no The Single Guy, which is still probably how Jonathan Silverman is credited when he goes to celebrity softball games.
I would think so. I was gonna make a Herman's Head reference, and I realized no, that's a good show, and we're talking about mediocre shows.
We could have gone to Weekend at Bernie's, although that's pretty good too. Weekend at Bernie's is totally
They made a
good.
show out of Weekend at Bernie's?
Oh, they didn't make a show, but that's how he could still be credited.
I thought we were talking about series. Oh, we were just going Jonathan
Silverman.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
no, I was going into William Ragsdale. He was Herman of Herman's Head.
Yes. Texas A&M has as impressive of a loss against Alabama as we've seen in the against Clemson as we've seen in the modern era. At home, everybody comes away from that game very happy with where the program is going. Jimbo Fisher, I guess the first part is he that internally motivated, as a new coach coming from a bigger situation, arguably, just because of the conference going to a new division? Is that internal motivation for Jimbo Fisher to say, I am building this program in a completely different way than where it's been, and year one is going to be a very positive thing? Does he have that fire?
He absolutely does. he has the chance to be that guy at Texas A&M. But again, he's one of those that he hates losing, probably more than he likes winning. So Saban's like that too. I just think that's probably the key ingredient in a successful coach, because they're just trying to not feel that way. And you're going to do almost anything you can to not feel that way. But here's the thing. We're going to find out this weekend how far Jimbo Fisher needs to take Texas A&M. We're going to find out what the real distance is, because he was hired to beat Alabama. He was hired to have and not just beat them once like Kevin Sumlin did in 2012, to beat them regularly, to have a better program than them that wins the division title regularly. So we're about to see how far Texas A&M has to go.
Fair. And when you look at this matchup, Alabama's favored right now, at least as we record this, by almost 4 touchdowns,
which is insane.
Which is crazy number.
If you've watched Alabama play at all this year, it doesn't seem crazy at all. The number seems fine. So,
and I understand the number, and I understand on a certain level the way games have turned out, because Tua Tagovailoa has surpassed, I would say, the expectations for him as he takes over that job.
Now we'll see if he can surpass the third quarter.
Now we can see if he can play a full game.
Yeah.
Here's the counterpoint, I suppose. If there's any sort of morsel, if there's anything on this bone, it's that both Louisville and Ole Miss had and continue to have completely dreadful defenses. Before playing Alabama, we're talking the 2017 versions, games in which Louisville and Ole Miss haven't played Alabama. They've been very bad defensively. Texas A&M, on the other hand, other than, granted, some big plays against Clemson, has more talent and more experience, and there's more reason to feel good with Mike Elko as their new defensive coordinator about them at least making a game out of the spread. Is there any morsel? Is there any meat on that bone to you?
Yes, this will be the best group of athletes that Alabama's offense has faced so far. And Mike Elko is a very good coordinator. That said, I still don't know if it matters, because here's what happens. If Alabama scores a couple quick ones, then Texas A&M is going to be pressing, trying to match them score for score. You know, back when Alabama tried to grind you into dust, you had a chance if you could force Alabama's offense to make a mistake.
Right.
But now, if Alabama's offense makes a mistake, it might be on the 4th series after they've already scored 3 touchdowns. And they're also still grinding you into dust on defense, by the way. And the second you start pressing and trying to match them score for score is when you start throwing picks. I mean, watching Deontay Thompson play center field is just, you can just see his eyes light up when they get like a 2 touchdown lead or a 3 touchdown lead. And you know that he's got to try something, because you can't just keep handing it off, and you can't throw short. You got to go for the downs at least once or twice. And as soon as he does that, there's Deontay Thompson.
There was a certain amount watching that game of like Alabama's defense is a sentient being. Like there is an AI to Alabama's defense.
Oh,
like
no, there absolutely is AI. I mean, but it's not an AI. It's actual intelligence. It's the intelligence of Nick Saban and Tosh Lupoi and all those coaches. They adjust quickly. They learn fast, and they take away whatever worked against them once. They're not going to let you do it again, because part of the thing is they don't have anyone you can physically dominate. You know, a lot of times you see teams run the same play over and over again because they can physically dominate someone at that position, where it doesn't even matter what the scheme is. Alabama is so good across the board, you can't physically dominate anyone. So they can, if you out scheme them, they'll just change the scheme and take away what you were doing. You have to be able to physically dominate someone once they've taken away your scheme. And unfortunately, most teams just don't have the talent to go toe-to-toe with them. Now, Texas A&M's receivers, you'd think, might have a chance. And I would have said they definitely do have a chance, except I just watched Ole Miss's receivers, who may be the best group in the country, who definitely have a really good quarterback throwing to them, and they scored once and did nothing after that. Nothing.
Give me if you had to come up with a percentage number of this being at least interesting in the second half, So that's within 17 at halftime. What percentage are you giving this as being a game as we start the third quarter? After Alabama drops, 50 the past 2 weeks? 40 and 50.
I'd say it's about a 35% chance that it's what you're talking about, like a 17-point game.
This game?
I think Alabama's going to do to them what they've done to the other teams, and that's score quickly, force them to press, and once they start pressing, that's when the turnovers, the short fields, the easy touchdowns for Alabama happen. And then, we haven't seen Alabama with its foot on the gas in the second half yet. They haven't needed it. So I don't know that Texas A&M is the team that's going to make them put their foot on the gas in the second half.
And a friendly reminder, in that second half, if they have to, they go 4 running backs deep with blue chip game changers. Just absurd. Let's go from there. I think I'm going to take Alabama. I think that's my answer there. Let's go from.
I think I'm fine taking Alabama the points. I just it's fine. I don't see betting against them until they don't cover a spread.
I have 14 points as what Georgia is favored by against Mizzou in Columbia as we move from Alabama to aspirational Alabama that was like 4 yards away from beating Alabama in the national championship as they sort of change things around, both with running backs and what the defense looks like. How close is Georgia to becoming that sentient team that Alabama is? And I suppose how does that look against Missouri with a very good quarterback and not a ton else?
Georgia's closer than people realize, I think. Okay. That South Carolina game was a pretty good example of what happens when a pretty good team meets an absolutely elite team. Mm-hmm. And, we just didn't know, had Georgia ascended to that level yet, or did they just have a pretty good collection of veteran players last year, and were they still going to need a few years to get to that talent level? No, they're there. They're at that talent level. And here's the thing. The baseline Kirby Smart inherited wasn't bad. Mark Richt had recruited fairly well. But then you throw Kirby Smart in there, and he's not letting the best players out of Georgia. He's getting pretty much everybody he wants. Well, now you have a team that really can go toe-to-toe with Alabama every year where it doesn't matter who left. They're going to be able to replace them. I think Missouri's going to score a couple points. They did last year. I think they scored 28 in the first half. But I just don't see how they block Georgia again and again. And Drew Lock's a good enough athlete to get out of trouble a few times. But if you don't get any protection, you're going to either get sacked or be forced into a throw that you really don't want to make, and it winds up being a pick, and then bad things happen after that. So I just think Georgia is too talented and will overwhelm them at a certain point.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm going to give those points even though it's on the road, especially after Mizzou has that emotional last-second win against Purdue. That's worrisome because this Purdue team is not great. This is another sort of one-note team.
Well, it's funny because we assumed Northwestern was good.
Right.
And when they beat Purdue narrowly in week 1, we were like, oh, well, Purdue must be pretty good too because they can hang with Northwestern. Well, it turns out Northwestern's probably not very good either. So, that one's a hard one to judge.
Hey, before we continue, a quick question. Do you want to hear your favorite NFL players and analysts breaking things down on and off the field? Do not miss the Dave Dameshek football program. He's a veteran in sports media. You've heard his name. Dave Dameshek has impeccable knowledge of the NFL and a signature, lighthearted, I'd say, rapport with his guests, many of whom happen to be just the biggest names in the league. No big deal. Dameshek and his guests operate on a strict no jive policy. If you're looking for jive, this is the wrong show for you. Just honest, unfiltered opinions are allowed on the program. Answers to questions like, what's it really like in the huddle? Who are the best trash talkers in the league? Who's the best corner Antonio Brown has ever faced? From Cam Jordan's favorite Will Ferrell movies to Dak Prescott's take on the most handsome NFL quarterbacks, the answer is Ryan Fitzpatrick, by the way. The Dave Dameshek football program tackles the game of football and the game we like to call life. As the NFL season unfolds, tune into the Dave Dameshek football program for some bold thoughts on all of the games and hot takes on the latest news stories. Subscribe to the Dave Dameshek football program now, available twice a week. Listen now on your favorite podcast app or NFL.com. Also, you should know that Harry's founders know that a great shave comes down to great blades made with sharp, durable steel that lasts. That's why they make some of the highest quality blades in the world, priced much lower than the leading brands you're used to. Also, they will give you a full refund. That's right, if you don't love your shave, as long as you let them know within 30 days. Basically, here's the offer. Harry's stands behind the quality of their blades. They created a $13 value trial set that comes with everything you're going to need for a close, comfortable shave. Listen up. Come on. We all want to look clean. It's a weighted, ergonomic handle, a 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade. Ooh, lubricating. A rich, lathering shave gel, travel blade cover. Claim yours right now. harrys.com/solid. And here's the thing. I keep my stubble pretty clean and consistent, but down on the neck, I need that clean. I don't want that scratchiness. I don't want that weird look. I don't want to look like Andrew Luck. That's not too much to ask for, so I use Harry's pretty much every day to keep the neck clean. It's almost like an infinity reflection, mirror to neck, neck to mirror. I really like that clean look, and Harry's is amazing, and there's just something quality about holding that razor in your hands. And now you, yes you, and Verballers everywhere can redeem their trial set at harrys.com/solid. Make sure you go once again to harrys.com/solid, SOLID, to redeem your offer, and let them know I sent you, your friend Dan, so you can help out the show. Do it. So it's my belief, as we move from the nooner headliner, I suppose, to 4:30, it's my belief that I think everybody should come away from Ohio State TCU thinking both teams are good, and TCU just isn't as talented as Ohio State. But I have no idea what to take away from Texas USC in terms of Texas being good or USC really being a struggling team. And these two teams play each other.
I don't take anything away from that yet.
Okay.
After Friday and Saturday, we may be able to take some stuff away because USC's got to play Washington State Friday night, and then Texas has TCU. That's the first time Texas has just taken a Power 5 team to the woodshed since 2013. So I don't know what to make of that because I haven't seen it very often. Can they repeat that? I don't know. They'll have to against TCU. This series has been as lopsided as it gets the last 4 years. I don't think Texas has scored more than 10 points against them.
Yeah, and TCU is probably better prepared under Gary Patterson to bounce back or not get too high, not get too low as they go and face a team that must feel particularly good to beat. Like I assume Texas is for Big 12 teams. TCU's favored by 3.5, I want to say, in this game. I think I feel good about TCU because it does feel like a letdown spot for Texas in that, like you said, they haven't been in this position to just destroy a big program.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The last 4 years, this game has looked like, you got two teams with a similar talent profile, and one is well coached with a very clearly defined identity, knows exactly what it is, and the other one has no identity. Right. And that's why TCU has destroyed Texas the last 4 years. Now, maybe Texas is developing that identity, but I have a hard time picking Texas because I know what TCU is. TCU always knows what it is. So I'm going to pick TCU in this one. I keep my whole thing with Texas is prove me wrong, prove me wrong, prove me wrong. Well, last week they finally did, but I'm going to need to be proven wrong a few more times because they've burned us all too much since the Mac Brown era. Basically, they just, for whatever reason, can't seem to define themselves. And I don't understand that because if I asked, 10 different people, what is Texas football? And if I asked you schematically, what is Texas football?
Right.
Especially offensively, people are going to go, well, I don't know. Now, I do feel like under Todd Orlando, they have developed more of a defensive identity. And I think that's probably a good first step. But the question is, was the offense we saw in the first half or the second half last week, is that what it's going to be? Because if it is, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I could live with that.
Absolutely. And the problem for me with Texas over 4 quarters is we saw what it'll take against TCU to beat them by double digits. And that was a talent advantage, what Texas may have at certain spots, and also the ability to wear down TCU. Because I don't think you're going to be able to out-scheme TCU. And Ohio State with Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins eventually wore them down. I don't the Texas run game, to me, in the offensive line, just isn't in that place.
No, I don't think they're ready to do that yet. Now, maybe they can do that against some other teams in the Big 12 and have a good season and have another good recruiting class and then be to the point where they can do that to TCU. But I just don't feel like they're quite there yet. And again, I need them to prove me wrong a few more times.
All right, and let's stick with bruising, running, and fun. Wisconsin's going on the road and taking on Iowa, and I would love to take Iowa in this game. It's Iowa City's tough place to play. The defense so far, to shut down that Iowa State team, which I think is more impressive after what we saw them do against Oklahoma. Just it rings even more true. And Wisconsin has looked, they looked sloppy against BYU. Offensively, defensively, they got run on a little bit. Is there any reason for you to believe in this Iowa team with what I think has been a pretty woeful offense? That's the other side of this.
Yeah, I'm going to take Iowa in this game.
Really? Is it because of that home defense?
Part of that, but also because Wisconsin's defense is not what it was.
True.
They're not as good as they have in the past few years. They personnel wise, they've had some losses either because of graduation or just because they've had some attrition. They are just not as talented or as deep on defense as they have been. Now, Wisconsin's defense absolutely dominated Iowa last year. If you remember that game, the only points Iowa scored were 2 pick sixes of Alex Hornibrook. So
right.
I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think Iowa's going to be able to move the ball a little bit, and that Iowa defense is much better. Now, because Iowa's offense was so bad, and they're going 3 and out every time, Wisconsin's offense eventually just decimated Iowa's defense last year. I don't think that happens this year. I think Iowa's going to be able to sustain some drives, which is going to give the defense a little bit of rest, and they're not going to have to deal with those massive offensive linemen and Jonathan Taylor coming at them just over and over and over again. I think they're going to have a little chance to take a breather, and they'll be able to get some stops. So, and Kinnick is a tough place to play, especially at night. So, I like Iowa in this game.
Yeah, I don't hate Iowa here. And the thing that concerns me with Wisconsin, yes, the defensive turnover is worrisome. Offensively, if you're going against a tough front with this Wisconsin team and you're not able to generate points on defense and things start going wrong, they can't dramatically change all that much. They're built around an ideal for better or worse on offense.
Well, and here's the other thing.
It feels like a bad matchup.
The only thing that went right for Iowa last year is they picked off Hornibrook a couple times.
Right.
I feel like in this particular matchup with Wisconsin not being as good on defense, picking off Hornibrook a couple times could swing the game.
Yeah,
Iowa had a couple games like that. It didn't help them against Wisconsin last year. It absolutely helped them against Ohio State.
True.
They can frustrate a quarterback to the point where he just keeps throwing him the ball.
Yeah, Hornibrook is the thing that worries me about taking Wisconsin in this game. Where if they go down 10-3, 10-0, does he start pressing? He's down a receiver. That's what worries me.
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate worry. This is a guy who threw 15 interceptions last year. So
fair.
I don't.
That's many.
This is. I think I don't know if I've talked you into Iowa yet, but I feel like
I'm real close.
I don't feel like I'm making that crazy of a pick here. And maybe I'm just my opinion is being influenced too much by the BYU game, but I'm having a lot because I picked Wisconsin to make the playoff, to win the Big Ten and make the playoff, and I'm having a lot of buyer's remorse on that. And I just, from a talent standpoint, I should have looked at what they had coming back on defense a little more closely than I did.
Yeah. And it's year 2 of a new coordinator who inherited a ton in his first year, and a brand new coach on a major level in Jim Leonard. It's worrisome. So yeah, I'm right there. I'm probably going to need some talking into for my own team if you are feeling anything about Oregon, because it's another 2 teams who are getting closer and closer to playing a very similar brand of football. Stanford travels to Eugene. It's the 8 o'clock ABC game. Stanford's favored by a couple points in a tough place to play, Autzen Stadium, against what appears to be, even though they've played nobody. A very good Oregon defense. We think this should be a good Oregon defense based on talent on multiple levels and the improvement that we saw under year one of Jim Leavitt last year. It hurts too much to take Oregon in this game after all the heartbreak I've been through these past few years. Is what would be the big selling point with taking Oregon against the Stanford team? And does it rhyme with Schmust and Schmerbert?
It sure does.
Okay.
Stanford has not seen a quarterback like this yet.
Mm-hmm.
As good as they've been on defense, it has not been against anyone as dynamic as Justin Herbert. And that's a big X factor right there. I'm going to take Stanford in this game just because Bryce Love, before he got hurt against Oregon last year, was having a really good game. I still am not sure Oregon can stop them. I know they've gotten better. I know Jim Leavitt's a good coordinator, but I'm not convinced Oregon can stop them. That said, if I'm wrong on this, it will be because Justin Herbert sliced and diced that defense, because we don't know if they're good yet. I mean, they've played San Diego State, which is it's not a mirror image team, but
it's in the same
State,
phylum.
What they do makes a lot more sense to Oregon players because it's similar to what they see every day. And then USC's just a mess offensively.
USC's a mess, and here would be my case against Oregon. In addition to all of the good things about Stanford, is I'm a little bit worried about the secondary and just getting boxed out by Stanford's big pass catchers.
Well,
Colby
and
Parkinson
here's the thing: Arcega-Whiteside, it's not just catching 50-50 balls.
Right.
One of the things he does really well is draws pass interference penalties.
Yep.
They have the ultimate safety blanket where if they get in third and long, you throw it up to him. And I'd say there's about a 66% chance that something good for Stanford happens, because he'll either catch the ball or he'll draw a penalty. And a third of the time, maybe you swat it away or it's a bad throw. But he's really good at forcing DBs to do things that the refs will throw a flag on.
Yeah, he's 6'3", 225 with long arms. And so what DBs have to do to play against him shows itself very plainly.
Well, and that's the other part. When it's a jump ball and everyone's looking at you, it's not a bang bang play. It's usually like a slower developing deal. So the official nearest the play gets a great look at how he's being covered, and that's usually going to be a problem for the DB.
I would also add that the Oregon receivers have not been good. They are definitely a full step or two down from where they were even a couple of years ago with Darren Carrington. And Royce Freeman was never tackled by an arm. He ran through every arm. And Oregon does not have that in the backfield next to Justin Herbert. They do not have that luxury. Royce Freeman had a very nice game. If you remember when they won in Palo Alto with Vernon Adams, I guess now 3 years ago, that is an enormous luxury against a team who is all that happy to force you to gain 4 yards at a time.
No, I'm with you on that. I'd like to pick Oregon in this game. I'm just not ready yet. I keep saying it, and I just believe that they are a year away.
Okay.
They're getting there. They're just not quite there yet.
Yep, and I think Herbert there's a good chance he'll be back, depending on what actually his draft stock looks like. I think his brother is coming to Oregon next year.
Yeah, so. I mean, the only way he's not back is if he's going to be the first guy off the board, and there's just no other option. But I think Drew Lock is probably gonna have the scouts just oohing and eyeing. So it may behoove Herbert to come back and then be the first guy off the board the next year.
Fair. Let's say in the Pacific Northwest, because there's a team there that plays defense maybe as well as anybody not named Alabama or Georgia. That's the Washington Huskies, who have a ridiculous secondary. Their line has been very good. They've got talent at linebacker, and they are just a little bit slow and sluggish on offense as Arizona State comes into town, coming off a loss, their second straight game on the road. Do you see this Washington team progressing in the right direction?
This is a matchup I worry about.
Okay.
Remember what Washington's offense did against Arizona State last year?
Yeah. Nothing. They got completely shut down. And, Arizona State, as far as the athletes they have back there, they might be better defensively than they were last year. Mm-hmm.
With a defensive-minded head coach. Now, I know Todd Graham was ostensibly a defensive-minded head coach as well.
Right.
But here's the thing. This is a crazy stat, and we had Brock Heward on my radio show, and he threw this out there. In their last 12 meetings, do you know how many times Washington has beaten Arizona State?
we're going back to some real bad Washington teams.
Yeah, we're going back to 2002.
Yeah, so twice?
Once.
Wow.
They crushed them in 2016, the Washington team that made the playoff.
Yes.
Beat Arizona State 44-18 in Seattle.
Okay.
But what happened
that was a nightmare of an ASU team too. Yeah.
Because it has the feeling of a styles make fights kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
And so if styles make fights, this appears to be Washington's kryptonite here.
Yeah, there's something that I think could be confusing. Arizona State goes to a 3-3-5 with San Diego State's old coordinator, Danny Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
And the early part of the season, if there's anything that has defined Jake Browning's experience, it has been being overwhelmed and confused at times.
Well, when he gets pressured, he will throw it up. And
he will panic, yeah.
Yeah, and you've seen that throughout his career, and it hasn't really changed that much. So, and the number's huge. It's Washington by 17
points, yeah.
See, I will happily, if we're just going against the spread, I'll happily take Arizona State and take your money. Washington may win the game, but I'm taking your money.
All right, before I go on with Andy, a quick reminder that we have partnered with The Athletic to give you the deal of a lifetime. I shouldn't have to tell you about The Athletic, but I'm happy to do it because The Athletic has some incredible college football writers, whether it's, our pals, Nicole Auerbach, Bruce Feldman, Stu Mandel, Chantel Jennings just wrote a cool piece about Michigan and Nebraska, a dream matchup from the 90s. There are all sorts of writers around the country covering your favorite team, whether it's Michigan State or Tennessee or Washington, Cincinnati, Clemson, Alabama, Florida. They've hired an incredible roster of writers to make things how they should be, covering college football. Everything is clean. There's no ads. There's no pop-ups. There's no videos jumping into your face as soon as you start reading. It's a clean experience. And right now, if you go to theathletic.com/solidverbal, it's $2.99 a month. An incredible deal. That's 40% off. Step into the future. You can pause the show right now and do it. I know you're on the fence. I know you've been waiting to pull the trigger. Experience these actually, there's a ton of college football season left. They're great during the off season. Just pause and sign up. Once again, theathletic.com/solidverbal. You will be so happy you did. Just like everybody who's done so that listens to this show has let us know. How did I not do this sooner? Go do it. theathletic.com/solidverbal so we can get the credit for it. Do it. Last week, you were at least part of the time in Lincoln, Nebraska, because you were writing about Troy. If anybody has not yet seen it, go to si.com and read Andy's story as he hung around with Troy and watched them prepare and watched them eventually beat Nebraska in their own house. Nebraska goes to Michigan seemingly without Adrian Martinez, who is hurt. They are almost 20-point underdogs against a Michigan team that you either A, believe is going in the right direction, or B, might not be, but is at least in a better direction than Nebraska.
Yeah, here's the deal with Nebraska. They're going to be fine eventually, but not in the near term, especially as long as Adrian Martinez isn't playing. And if I'm Scott Frost, I don't play Adrian Martinez until he's 1,000,000% healthy.
Yeah,
I don't want him to play him. I don't want to play him in any sort of weakened state where he might get hurt worse. Just let him sit out, take your lumps, and deal with it. Everybody in Nebraska still loves Scott Frost. They will still love him even if this year's tough. They'll blame everything on Mike Riley, and some of the blame does belong on Mike Riley, to be honest with you. So I don't worry about Nebraska. I just feel like they're going to have to go through some pain before it gets better. And all I'll tell people is Scott Frost's first year at UCF ended with UCF fans booing Mackenzie Milton off the field.
Wow.
So that's all you need to do to remember is it happened that quickly. And Adrian Martinez is a special quarterback, so don't risk him in a season where you're going to be struggling to make a bowl game. Don't risk him for that. So I don't expect him to play against Michigan. If he did play against Michigan, I'd give them more of a chance. But I even though the number is huge, it's 19.5. I'll take Michigan and that number. Because I think Nebraska is going to struggle to move the ball at all against Michigan. I do think Nebraska's defense could make life a little bit difficult for Michigan, but I think Michigan's offense is going to have the ball so much because I think there are going to be just a lot of 3-and-outs that I think Michigan will eventually hit that number.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's stay on the topic of special quarterbacks because we have the opportunity to see one of them explode at 3:30 on ESPN. West Virginia hosting Kansas State, who has been rough.
Yes.
Kansas State has been rough this year, and not in the like Bill Snyder is a wizard and he is rough on teams. West Virginia, and you mentioned Ole Miss's receiving core, if it's not Ole Miss, it might be West Virginia's that has just a top level.
Oh yeah, David
receivers.
Sills and Gary Jennings. This is a good group, and K-State does not look like K-State.
No. How high can West Virginia go? Yeah. How high can West Virginia go with this really good offense and below average defense?
I don't know if it's below average, Dan.
Okay.
I don't.
That was a leading
we'll
question.
See. I mean, I don't know that K-State is the test necessarily, but I do think that they're probably a little better than we think. I'm not saying they're going to be Alabama good or anything, but they're going to get some stops. The remaking of the interior D line was big for them.
Mm-hmm.
They had 2 grad transfers, Jabril Robinson from Clemson, and then they had Kenny Bigelow come over from USC. Kenny Bigelow wasn't even going to play football anymore. He had been a 5-star recruit. He'd gone to USC, and he just had a bunch of injury problems, and he just never could get going. And he's got a couple like David Sills is one of his high school teammates, and then Da'Keil Shorts, who doesn't play for West Virginia anymore but works there, is another one of his high school teammates. And they said, hey, just give it one more shot. And if you saw him in that Tennessee game, he was a force. He was collapsing the pocket almost every play. He's blowing up running plays. A guy like that makes a huge difference when you're trying to deal with a less experienced secondary. And actually, they have some experience in the back end now, West Virginia. Last year was sort of come in here and take your lumps. But I think they're experienced enough. The question is, do they have anybody coming off the edge that can really affect the quarterback? And again, against K-State, that's not really the test. Mm-hmm. It will be when they play Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. Can they do it then? That'll be the big question. But we don't have to find out about that until November.
I'm happy to give these 14.5 points. I think Will Grier.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. He has reached the point where when things break down, he has a look on his face that's just, yeah, I gotcha. Don't worry. This is going to happen. Don't worry. It's weird that we've gone this long without discussing Florida, Tennessee, but on the same level, it's not. Because
it's not that relevant. We did mention it one time where we're saying they're kind of, we're trying to figure out how close they are together in terms of reclamation projects, but it's not a big grand scheme game. Now, it could be a really fun game to watch if they are fairly close in talent, because you've got 2 pretty good schematic coaches who would much rather have a different roster, and you see them go at it and get frustrated and try to outwit each other. I think that could be fun to watch. It just may not mean anything. It obviously, as long as Georgia's doing what it's doing, it's not going to mean anything in terms of the SEC East race.
So is that why you watch this game, just in hopes that it's close and weird at the end, that there isn't necessarily? Yeah.
And it has been a fun game to watch. Well, sorry, last year was not a fun game to watch. Last year was a horrible game that had a very exciting play at the end.
Right.
It was not well played. Neither team looked good. But Felipe Franks hit Tyree Cleveland at the end on a crazy pass, and everybody's like, "Oh my God!" That was the big selling point there. The one the year before where Florida took the big lead and then Tennessee came back and put the hammer down in the second half, that was fun to watch. The one where Will Grier saved Florida's bacon was fun to watch. But that's the thing. These programs seem pretty close together. And again, that's not what you want to hear if you're Dan Mullen, because you thought maybe it'd be better. But I think the Kentucky game sort of disabused him of any notion that they were somehow superior to these other teams in the East that are kind of on the level they've been on. So, and I don't know that Mullen actually. I think that's more of the fan base. I think Mullen probably figured that out the first spring practice, but yeah, it's one of those that the fan base was, the balloon got punctured pretty bad with the Kentucky loss.
Yeah, I think in a game where there's a lot of concerns about both teams and the home team who plays in a large stadium in a rivalry game is getting points, I'm going to take those points. It feels like the responsible adult thing to do.
It does. Road favorites scare the hell out of me normally. And I have no idea what's going to happen in that game. So I'd say let logic be your guide.
All right, we've got a couple of other road favorites here. Mississippi State on the road against said Kentucky.
I don't like a double-digit line here. Don't like
so
it
many
at all.
points. And Kentucky's been able to run the ball. Their defense has been pretty frisky. It feels trappy.
Kentucky has a really good offensive line. Mississippi State has a great defensive line.
Yes, they do.
So that's the question: is how good is Kentucky's offensive line? Because if they're good enough to kind of toe-to-toe with them, then this will be a close game. I think Mississippi State will still win it, but it'd be close.
Yes.
Because I as exciting as Terry Wilson is, Nick Fitzgerald's a better version of Terry Wilson.
Yes, and they are going to be happy to run it at Kentucky ad nauseum.
Yeah, and Kentucky's going to try to do the same thing to them. This may be over in about 3 hours and 5 minutes, which, all the games are too long kind of people can finally shut up.
Oh, yeah. Watch this one. If games are too long for you, watch Mississippi State, Kentucky. This is going to be like a Greg Maddux game.
Yeah,
where it's just like up and down, up and down. All right, we scored, we're kicking, up and down.
He's going to throw a 79-pitch complete game. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, wonderful. Let's stick with road favorites, and let's go Michigan State, Indiana. Michigan State coming off a bye week and a loss in the desert. Indiana's looked surprisingly, not surprisingly, because Tom Allen did a good job turning the defense around, but they're running the ball well. They play decent defense. This game's on, it looks like BTN.
Yep.
I may like Indiana here. Am I crazy?
Indiana plays good defense under Tom Allen. And I'm wondering if Michigan State struggled to score that badly against Arizona State, they may struggle to score here too.
They may.
I might be with you on this one.
Wow. What a world we live in. So we're both taking Indiana.
We still win money if Michigan State wins by a field goal.
That's true. And you know what? Michigan State's a team who can't run the ball. So I don't think they're blowing many teams out this year.
Exactly. It's sort of like Notre Dame, but not quite as dominant a defense.
Wow. I don't know who that's more insulting to, comparing Michigan State to Notre Dame.
Well,
okay.
You ask Ty when he comes back, and then
I will ask Ty.
Figure it out.
All of this defense makes me want to talk about Oklahoma State hosting Texas Tech because there may be 90-plus points in this game.
You know what? I think Oklahoma State gets some stops because Oklahoma State just faced a really good offense and played very well against it. I think Boise State's better than a lot of teams in the Big 12. And Oklahoma State handled them, I don't want to say easily. No win like that is easy, but man, they look great. I keep saying this and then not following my own advice. Mm-hmm. We have to give Mike Gundy the benefit of the doubt at this point. He has earned it. So even if he's losing his quarterback and losing, a bunch of skill guys, they're still going to be good because he knows what he's looking for when he's recruiting. He knows what his program is. He knows what it's supposed to look like. I have no problem with this 12-point number. I will take Oklahoma State.
The only problem I would put forth is that Oklahoma State wins this game by a touchdown last year with one of their better, if not best, modern quarterbacks.
In Lubbock, though.
In Lubbock, which is 1,000 miles away from everything, for better or worse.
And very windy, and
yes.
And the people who play there every day have a little bit of an advantage because they understand how the weather works.
And 2 years ago, Texas Tech with, I think it's pretty clear, their best quarterback in the modern era, wins this game.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy's unbelievable.
So, short of having Pat Mahomes suit up for Tech this week, and listen, Texas Tech looks like the most Texas Tech team possible. Year over year, they figure out quarterbacks and they struggle on defense.
Can I, because I hadn't seen this line yet. For some reason got to this point on the page. Mm-hmm. Can we do Boston College, Purdue now?
We can, yes.
Because the fact, and I realize it's a road favorite thing, but the fact that Boston College is only favored by 7, given everything we watched this year, is a little shocking.
What changed with Boston College? Where year over year, it was like, oh, they have a good defense and they're randomly putting 3 guys in the NFL draft in the first 4 rounds. But now things have opened up on offense and they've become exciting and they're leaning on skill talent. What changed?
I think getting AJ Dillon was a big thing because, I mean, he was a blue chip recruit. He's not somebody who, that they found a gem diamond in the rough somewhere.
Right.
He's someone everybody wanted and they got it. So you have him. He's a grown ass man. And then Anthony Brown is a really good quarterback. I mean, some of those throws he was making against Wake Forest, you're like, wow. And then they were growing into a good offensive line, and I think they're now kind of fully formed there. So that's what makes them so tough. That's a good Wake Forest team that they ran away from at the end of the game.
No, the fact that Boston College is at least pretty good feels fun. Like there's nobody in the Northeast. I mean, Syracuse has gotten better. Penn State, I don't think is truly Northeast. There's something very Midwesty about Penn State playing in the Big Ten and being in Central PA. But the fact is, like a BC team that's frisky and that plays Notre Dame every so often, I like this. I'm a fan of this on the upward trajectory.
Yeah. No, I'm going to enjoy this game because Jeff Brom is now sort of like the wounded dog that's cornered because they've had just bad luck. Things have not gone their way. They need a win badly. He's going to pull out all the stops in this game. And I do enjoy when he does that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the points. I think it's going to be a back and forth.
It's funny. I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth about road favorites, but I expected that after the Wake Forest game that Vegas would set this line at like 12 or 13. So when I saw 7, I was like, take Boston College. Yeah, I'm gonna take Purdue in the points. I think it's back and forth. I think Boston College can pull it out. I think it's probably another heartbreaker after last week against Mizzou. Yeah, I'm gonna take the points, but I think BC wins this game. Clemson's going to Georgia Tech. I can't really see that many reasons other than Clemson is not really built and is not really coached to run away from teams in the same way other teams are. Here's the problem. What's the X factor? If you get physically dominated up front, you can't run the option. That is the problem. That is a significant issue, especially when the new rules make it even harder to run the option. Yeah, I don't know how, because you have to block it perfectly. You have to block it if you block it perfectly, you score a touchdown. Right. But if you get beaten inside, like if Dexter Lawrence comes through the line of scrimmage, the play is over. And depending on whether they've pulled from the fullback and gone into the quarterback and the pitch man at that point, really bad things can happen. So yes, I just don't like the match again in the styles make fights kind of game. I don't like running the option against a vastly athletically superior defensive line. Yeah, it's also, I mean, Georgia Tech may improve on offense eventually, on defense with Nate Woody. If they get to average, they become a dangerous team, but not against Clemson and probably not with what they have on defense right now. Yeah, I don't like this one for Georgia Tech. I don't like the matchup at all. All right, another matchup, and this, I guess we're going back to late Friday night, which is where USC lost this game on a Friday night in Pullman last year. But Wazoo, who comes in not having played many opponents that'll tell us anything really about the Cougars, go to LA to play against a USC team 2 weeks on the road, come back, true freshman quarterback who's a little bit dinged up. They lose comfortably last week to Texas, who lost to Maryland. USC seems like they're in disarray a little bit, and Washington State, we just don't know much about. Yeah, this feels like one where everybody hops on Washington State because of how bad USC was last week. And then you realize, oh, wait, USC's players are still just way better. Yeah, this feels like an right game. That's just somebody like... I mean, the year Kiffin got fired, Washington State went down there and won 10-7. Like... I have no feel for this game whatsoever. So Washington State's defense has been pretty good, but again, we don't fully know that. It's hard to tell because they haven't really played anybody. USC's favored. I'm tempted to take Washington State. Here's what worries me about, I like in the full course of that, like of your talking, you convinced yourself, you're like, people are going to jump on Washington State, but... And then I'm going to jump on Washington State. And then you finish it like, The thing is, USC just seems like a mess. USC maybe they've got it figured out. I know Clay Helton came out and said, aha, we have to practice harder. But that seemed like an odd statement to me. Like, you didn't know you had to practice hard? You won a Rose Bowl and a Pac-12. You should have a fairly good idea of what kind of practice it takes to win games.
The big thing to me about USC is they're much more talented than pretty much everybody on their schedule. They're more talented than Stanford. They're more talented than Texas. And
they got whooped in both those games.
They got whooped. It wasn't like they lose 35-33 and it's back and forth and they're trading haymakers, and they have a blue chip at every position, if not 3 blue chips. And there's something very strange to me about the cook not knowing ingredients and not knowing to at least make something passable. It's worrisome.
I have the same. I wrote a column this weekend because last week it occurred to me what Clay Helton's situation felt like.
Okay.
It felt like another coach that I had seen recently, and I couldn't put my finger on it till last week. But basically, USC fans feel about Clay Helton the way Florida fans felt about Jim McElwain.
Wow.
Where outside, it looks like a success. I mean, by any objective measure, 2 SEC East titles in your first 2 years, a Rose Bowl win and a Pac-12 title your first 2 years, that's a success. But the people who've been the most skeptical are their own fans. And that's what it was like with Florida. Now, having covered Florida as a beat writer, I understood where they were coming from because I understood kind of what the program looks like when it's positioned to succeed, and I knew it wasn't. USC, I've never covered as a beat writer. I don't know it as well. So I was just like everybody else. I'm like, what are you complaining about, guys? And now I see what they were complaining about, because a lot of the things they've complained about over the first 2 years of Clay Helton now seem to be coming home to roost. So the difference is Jim McElwain and his administration did not get along with one another. Clay Helton and his administration do. Everybody likes Clay Helton. Everybody wants it to work with Clay Helton. So he's going to get longer and more chances. And I also think he's smart enough to know if something's not working, let's change something. McElwain,
and he does in his...
McElwain was kind of, I'm a genius and I'm going to continue being a genius and I'll make it work.
And he does have the track record of, and this is for better or worse, of starting terribly like they did a couple years ago and finishing the season beating a playoff team in Seattle.
But the thing about 2016 was they started terribly because he chose the wrong quarterback.
Right.
They started terribly because of a really bad coaching decision. That's it. There's no other explanation for it. It's actually a very simple thing. And I don't think it speaks well.
No, unless it's that same situation of like starting the guys to take his lumps against Alabama and not to
and I also think it was to keep him from transferring, because Max Brown was probably itching to transfer. So you didn't want a Tristan Gebbia situation. So you start him and then he sticks around for the year. Because, that's the deal at Nebraska. Let's say they start Tristan Gebbia in the first game, he doesn't transfer, and then you just, you okie doke him and put Adrian Martinez in when you're ready. Maybe they still have 2 scholarship quarterbacks now. So maybe that's what it was, but I'm not sure that was worth the risk because Sam Darnold was really, really good.
Good sliding doors, by the way, with Clay Helton, or not Clay Helton because the hire was at a different time, but USC and Ed Orgeron. The college football gods are shining.
No, you remember, so when USC hired Sark and Orgeron was the interim, Orgeron quit and refused to coach the bowl game because he was so insulted that they had hired Sark, and Clay Helton was the interim for that game.
He was indeed. And there is that, like, maybe Coach O was right. Maybe he was so right. He saw Sark and he saw what he did.
How about this? Maybe Coach O can coach.
Yeah.
That's the thing I've been telling people all summer. The whole hot seat talk was BS. It was a case of writers needing to put someone from every conference on their hot seat column.
Yeah.
And there's nobody on the hot seat in the SEC. So they picked the person who I guess was closest to it, or the person who'd gotten complained about the most. But the guy won 9 games in his first season as the head coach. He kind of, if you go...
They were very quietly in the back half of last year. Pretty good. Yeah.
Well, and the other part of it is, yes, he screwed up at Ole Miss. He was not a good head coach at Ole Miss. He'll be the first person to tell you that.
Right.
But look at his record as the USC interim as the LSU interim and last year. The man knows what he's doing now.
And there's a certain degree of, listen, the Joe Burrow thing will probably work out all right. They're probably not a playoff team, but they have 2 big wins in which the offense didn't look wonderful, but winning without a wonderful offense is
they have
certainly
one of the
something.
toughest schedules in the country.
Yes.
And at this point, it's going to be hard for them to win fewer than 8 games.
That's incredible. That's legitimately, he doesn't have.
They might win 10 games against the toughest schedule in the country.
Yeah. They full on might. I don't know where the Texas A&M game is this year. I don't know where.
It doesn't matter. Texas A&M hasn't beaten them since they've been in the league.
That's true. Also true.
This is another one of Jimbo's mandates, by the way. So they're always completely depleted by the time they play LSU.
Of course.
He's got to recruit to make them deep enough that by the time LSU shows up, they're not thin and kind of on their last legs.
Here's the other thing about Coach O that you don't necessarily see at USC. His teams buy in, which is not insignificant.
Not at all. They will do anything he asks.
Wow. I'm fully aboard the hashtag justice for Coach O.
Well, it's interesting seeing how many people are jumping on that bandwagon now. Trust me, they've been keeping score in Baton Rouge. They know how many people, clowned him over the last year. I don't blame them.
I'm saying just as it relates to USC.
Yeah.
Anything else this week that stands out to you game-wise? Is there anything interesting? Yeah, FAU has UCF. I think UCF is probably going to blow them out. They look pretty strong
I think
early.
That's a talent gap situation. I just don't think FAU can overcome that. That really, I think we've covered just about everything that should be interesting.
Are you going anywhere, by the way?
Well, I spent all of last week in Troy and then went to Lincoln. So I was gone for 8 days. So I am home for this weekend.
Oh, good.
And I am excited because I get to watch everything.
What was the single best thing you ate either in Troy, Alabama or in Lincoln, Nebraska?
There's a burger place in Lincoln called Honest Abe's. And they have a burger that has pickled apples and melted Gouda on it.
Whoa, okay.
It is so freaking good.
Is there a salt factor? It feels very sweet and rich.
Well, it is, but the burger's salty. So and there's bacon on it too. So apples apparently were Abraham Lincoln's favorite food. And so they made a burger with apples on it.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Well, enjoy your weekend at home in front of a TV. Hopefully your TV is large or you have multiple TVs.
I've got a 60 and a 70. So
in the same room?
No. The 60's in the living room, and that's as big as it can get just because of that space.
Okay.
And there's a 70 in the bedroom.
Real quick, because we don't have Ty's soundboard, so I can't instruct him to drop that big stanky drum and fife. I have Colgate Murderous over Lafayette. Do you have a pick?
All right. Are we going through the whole Patriot League?
We're going through the Pat League, the most important conference in
I'm
America.
taking Colgate in this one.
Yeah, Lafayette. It might be a rebuilding year for the Leopards.
For the Leopards.
Central Connecticut traveling to New York's one true team, Ralph Russo's Fordham Rams.
Give me the Rams.
You gotta go Rams here. This is the week it turns around. Dartmouth going to Holy Cross. Do you have a lean based on your research?
Buddy Tevens all the way.
Fair. Columbia at Georgetown.
I got a guy I played with who coaches at Columbia. I'm going Columbia.
Do you know the name of... I'm going Georgetown because this game, do you know the name of their... It might not be named this anymore, but it was the name of their stadium when we started this podcast. Georgetown, for a long time, it might be called something like Simmons Field now. Their home stadium used to be called Multi-Sport Field.
Nice.
I find to be very endearing.
And did it have the lines for lacrosse?
It had lines for 7 different sports. There may have been a volleyball court.
They bought it
painted on the field. It was a sport court sponsorship that they really stretched to the limits. Lehigh traveling to Penn.
Give me the Quakers.
I'm going Quakers as well. Bucknell yet to win a game. Ty holds a grudge going to Villanova, who's been pretty good.
Yeah, give me
years.
Andy Talley and the Wildcats.
I'm going Nova as well. Andy Staples, thank you very much for your time. Are you grilling? Are you making anything this weekend? What's the food plan for Saturday?
No, I've been eating terribly, so I'm probably eating salads this week. I need to rein it in. My birthday is next week, and
okay,
I'm told there's going to be some sort of bacchanal that includes barbecue, so I gotta prepare for that.
let's balance this out. What's on your go-to salad?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, I'm going to go chicken and usually mozzarella.
Okay.
Occasionally
nice
I'll go cheddar or the Mexican, the 3-cheese Mexican blend, but usually mozzarella. I like some bacon bits. I like cucumbers a lot, and I love a good balsamic vinaigrette.
Great. So you'll have a giant salad that should fill you up. And
I'm
not
also
make
a
you feel
sucker for a
terrible.
good Caesar salad, but if I'm eating salad to try to lose weight or be healthy, Caesar dressing is probably not the best way to go.
And I assume you're preparing the bacon. We're not using turkey bacon. Even I don't like turkey bacon. Even I.
Here's the thing. I hate turkey. I hate turkey burgers. They're every time I go out with Bruce Feldman to dinner, he orders a turkey burger and he expresses disappointment in his turkey burger. I'm like, what did you expect? It's a turkey burger. If you order a cow burger, you will never be disappointed. But
you have never said anything truer. I went to a restaurant in New York with Bruce. He ordered a turkey burger and he ate it. He ate the whole thing and said, "This is the worst turkey burger I've ever had."
It's
every time.
Every time. And he's done it now. I'm trying to think of how old Bruce is and when turkey burgers came into fashion. I would be willing to bet he has consumed 1,000 turkey burgers in his life. And he's been disappointed by every one of them. And he has not put 2 and 2 together yet that there's a better way to... Listen, if you want to order turkey, great. Order a club sandwich.
Yeah.
Club sandwiches are delicious.
See,
Just
I'm not
don't grind it up and try to call it a burger. It does not cook up right as a burger. I'm not anti-turkey. Like Gary Parrish, who covers basketball for CBS, he is vehemently anti-turkey. Believes we'd never eat it if it weren't for Thanksgiving. I disagree. I love a good turkey sandwich.
Sure.
But
see, I like a turkey burger, but I have an asterisk to it. One, a regular burger is just better. Like
exactly.
that is unassailably
that's
true.
The problem. The just unadorned cow burger with nothing on it is biologically designed to be more satisfying than a turkey burger. So you will never be as happy eating a turkey burger as you will be eating a cow burger. And you can say it's for health and all that, but it's really not that big of a difference in terms of saturated fat. If you're just, because you're not supposed to eat a cow burger every day. It's an every once in a while kind of food. So if you're going to eat a burger every once in a while, eat the right kind of burger. If you want to eat turkey, eat yourself a club sandwich. It's delicious.
And if you're I'll make turkey burgers, but you have to make so much more. You have to grill onions. You have to slice some avocado. You have to make a burger sauce. You have to do more to a turkey burger.
If you want to make cow burgers, you can put salt and pepper and maybe a little Worcestershire sauce in there, but you don't have to.
Nope. If you
put it on the grill, it will hit every taste bud perfectly. Whatever those dopamine receptors in your brain are doing, they're perfectly happy with it. They love it. You won't be disappointed.
This is a good time to mention the show is also brought to you by the Beef Council. The Beef Council. Andy Staples approves. All right. That's all the time we have. Thank you to everybody for listening. Hopefully we have Ty back here soon. But if we don't have Ty, we have the next best thing, which is Andy Staples, Sports Illustrated. And if you've already listened to a Solid Verbal episode and you're driving around in your car, where should people tune their digital dials?
You should go to SiriusXM Channel 84. I'm on every day, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time with Jason Horowitz, and it's a lot of fun. And we do not take the sport seriously. We are Solid Verbal listeners. We are verballers. That is how we learn to handle the audio portion of college football. It will not be your typical screaming sports talk. That's not what we do. We have a lot more fun than that. So if you want to, it's mostly me making Jason feel very inadequate about the way he pronounces the word Clemson.
What is he? Does he not do the full P?
There is no P. You get in big trouble if you do a P. That's what when South Carolina fans are making fun of Clemson fans, they
over-enunciate. Yeah.
So he did it once. He accidentally put the P in there once, but I'm so in his head about it now. He can't say it without kind of pausing for a second and waiting for me to pounce. So he just basically says Dabo Sweeney's team every time now.
Ty pronounced the word globe as globe.
Globe.
So anything, because he was so in his own head, because we were doing a read for one of those meal services that send you food through the mail, and he was reading through.
So he's
the
like talking
ingredients.
about recipes from around the globe.
No, it wasn't even that bad. It wasn't that bad. That would have been. It was globe tomatoes, but he was so positive that it couldn't just be the word globe that he gave that E the globe treatment. So Jason's not there yet. So
listen, live reads. As
They're
someone
killer.
who has only been doing them for a couple years now, they can be tricky because the people who write your average live read, they never read them. So
yeah,
and you can go through and rewrite them, but half the time you're too busy trying to book guests and make sure you're prepped for the show that you don't really look at the read until about 10 seconds before you actually start reading. So sometimes it sounds like you're not even speaking English.
Perfect. That is totally and completely the truth. Andy Staples, thank you very much for your time. And if you are listening, you probably know you can follow us at Solid Verbal on Twitter. You can email us solidverbal@gmail.com. You can like our page on Facebook. You can go to solidverbal.com/store and wear a comfortable shirt that Andy has in his rotation.
I love that shirt, by the way.
Yes.
Love it.
So if you want to look like Andy Staples and what he
hopefully
looks like
skinnier,
wearing
but yes.
clothes, solidverbal.com/store for a limited time. It's still going to be up there. We're going to be adding more there as well. In the meantime, stay solid. Thank you for listening. Peace.